Okay. Part 3. In 1950, the ratio of the average executive's paycheck to the average worker's paycheck was about 30 to 1. Since the year 2000, that ratio has ranged between 300 and 500 to 1. So, for every $1 that you make, the big boss's check is $500 bigger. Beautiful. Federal border officials, the FBO, recently said that Mexican drug cartels have not only set up shop on American soil, but they're actually maintaining lookout bases in strategic locations in the hills of southern Arizona. So, they're not only here and, scarfacing up the whole bottom of Arizona, but they actually are maintaining lookout bases? That sounds like occupation. Why don't we categorize that as occupation and go in with the very large guns and wipe it all out? But no. Sadly, there's not enough gasoline in their tanks to give us something we need to go to war. Bummer. The U.S. has actually declared some parts of Arizona off limits to U.S. citizens because of the threat of violence from Mexican drug smugglers. So what they're doing instead is they're actually, clearing the way for them. So come on through this way. We'll move everybody for you. According to the credit card repayment calculator, if you owe $6,000 on a credit card with a 20% interest rate, which, let's believe some people actually get a 20% interest rate somewhere after the first 6 months, and only pay the minimum payment each time, it will take you 54 years to pay off that credit card. During those years, you will pay $26,168 in interest rate charges, in addition to the $6,000 in principal that you are required to pay back. According to prepared testimony, Goldman Sachs COO Gary Cohn, Goldman Sachs shorted roughly $615 million of the collateralized debt obligations and residential mortgage-backed securities the firm underwrote since late 2006. So they're skimming off the top of their own bullshit money. Why don't we just give them printers and they can just print off their own money? And we don't have to worry about them ruining people's lives and taking their houses, ruining businesses, imploding the infrastructure of our entire economy and throwing us into another Great Depression while they line their pockets and, rape and pillage the whole way there. Why don't we just give them an assload of paper money printers, just lock them in a room, let them print money and roll around in it naked? That's really all they want. What could they do with all that money? These guys that give themselves a $30 million bonus for that year. What are you going to do with that? I'm going to buy a pool. You buy a $30 million pool. You know what I do with $30 million? Live the rest of my life. What could you do with $30 million in less than, 20 years? Aside from buying all the really big shit you're ever going to need. You could live off that. What the fuck's he going to do with it? The 6 biggest banks in the U.S. possess assets equivalent to 60% of our gross national product. 4 of the biggest banks, Goldman Sachs, JP, B of A, and Citigroup, had a perfect quarter with 0 days of trading loss during the first quarter of 2010. That's very obviously collusion. Even to a layperson, that is collusion. They are working together. They're bid rigging. They're setting the prices. They're working together to effectively reach into your pocket, take all of your money, throw it in a room, and roll around naked in it. 1.41 million Americans filed for personal bankruptcy in 2009, which is actually a 32% increase over 2008. BP has hired private security contractors to keep the American people away from oil cleanup sites, and nobody seems to care. Which is true. I've seen videos on here And that's it. I think Jon Stewart or Colbert or somebody made light of it on that show, but nobody takes it seriously for some reason. I actually read in some entertainment magazine that a poll showed that when Republican people are watching the Colbert Report, the reason he has such a ridiculous fan base is because Republicans watch his show and they take him seriously. They think that he's really praising Bill O'Reilly and he really loves Glenn Beck. And, so they did a little bit, but then they made jokes and people forgot about it. Why? Why isn't anybody doing anything about this? On June 18th, 2 Christians decided they should peacefully pass out copies of the Gospel of John on a public sidewalk outside a public Arab festival in Dearborn, Michigan, and within 3 minutes, 8 policemen surrounded them and placed them under arrest. Now, aside from the inflection in my voice the whole time I read that, I actually agree with that. Because let's say I'm a total asshole. I don't believe in any religion. I think they're all, comic books with no pictures. But let's say I pick a religion and I go to the Arab Festival in Dearborn, Michigan. Now, does anybody know a little trivia fact about Dearborn, Michigan? That's right. They have the largest Muslim population in all of America. 300-something thousand of them. So an Arab festival in Dearborn, Michigan, you'd pretty much be the only 2 Christians anywhere. Yeah, you should have been arrested, so that way you can bitch and moan about it all from your jail cell tomorrow morning when you're still alive. Barack Obama's calling for a civilian expeditionary force to be sent to Afghanistan and Iraq to help overburdened military troops build infrastructure. That's a really cute way of calling it a draft. Draft. It's coming. White slavery. That's what I read. I read that's what he's aiming for. He'll call it all sorts of things, but he's going to try not just white slavery. White slavery, that's what I read because it was a racist person saying something about, a black president. It's just slavery. They're just walking you right into it, headlong. You don't even see it coming. It's being reported that sales of foreclosed homes in Florida make up nearly 40% of all home purchases in the first part of this year. During a recent interview with Larry King, former First Lady Laura Bush revealed to the world that she's actually in favor of legalized gay marriage and a women's right to abortion. I don't give a shit about either. If a woman's pregnant and she has some reason to want to get rid of it, that's on her. It doesn't affect me. And if you're gay, as long as you're not giving him a BJ in my vicinity, I could really not give a shit. So, on to the next part.